Pressed it. We are live. That's what I think. That's the rumor. The rumor is that we're live.
Let's tell people about it then.
Good morning and good evening from wherever everyone is in the world.
It is. It's the well. What time is it with you?
It's 7 a.m. here, so it's the sun's rising right behind my back right now, and I believe it's the evening for you guys.
It's so late here. We lost the sun hours ago. It's just cold and dark. It's so unfair. You're just in a t-shirt.
There was sun today.
Sorry, what did you say?
There was sun today.
There must have been some. There must have been. Must have been some for all of those beautiful indoor plants that you've got there, Chris. What is that all about?
There are more plants than plug sockets here, and yeah, I don't know how I feel about it.
What time does it get dark for you guys in the UK?
At the moment, about 4 o'clock.
Not much day within it.
No.
It doesn't always get light, Alk. It doesn't even always get light. Some days it's just and it just goes.
It is poor. It's poor, but I'm excited that we're live streaming. That's good fun.
Yeah, it's great to be with both of you guys in the same stream today.
So that's exciting. So I don't even know how long we're going to be on for, but anyone that's joining us is very, very welcome to. I think we're going out on my X, on the Subnet Summer X, on the BitStarter X. I don't know if we have put those links in anywhere else.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we've got a pretty nice live stream lined up. So I'm excited about it. And I thought it'd be a nice live stream to do because it's the start of the year and it made sense to talk about some beginnings.
I agree. Happy New Year's, first of all.
Well, it's been ages for you now, hasn't it? So
it's been years.
You get it a long time before we do.
That's true. About nearly 11 hours ahead of you guys. So
yeah. So far. How's that? I mean, yeah. So, Chris, have you finished being busy there? What were you doing? Yeah,
I'm always busy.
Oh, it works. It is like
it's New Year's Eve after all. So what better way to welcome?
How it works.
You need the right touch, Mark. But
You're not the first person to say that.
I'm delighted to have gotten the first live stream in so soon after the new year. Got a lot to update people about. We've been working hard behind the scenes on BitStarter, on Quasar, and on the kinds of cross-protocol partnerships that will make every team stronger. So we have Mark, who is backing Quasar through DSV. We have Alchemist, who joined BitStarter just before Christmas. And we have a lot of news for you. So Mark's going to ask some questions. He's going to go under the hood of BitStarter and reveal some of the back-end processes that make us, that give us the edge when enriching and upskilling teams. And then Alchemist and I are going to work through the different channels that we use to make sure every team has the best shot of hitting mainnet running. Mark, did I leave anything out?
No, I mean, we're just going to chat for a bit, aren't we? And we're going to see how it goes. So we just thought it'd be a nice thing to do to jump on because it is early in the year, and it's always interesting to talk about what we think is going to happen and what role we're playing in shaping it and where BitTensor's going to go and where it might end up. And that's always exciting. And it's exciting to kind of draw a line in the sand and say, right, it's the 2nd of January or the 3rd for Alchemist. And what's going to happen? Because we're so early still. Like we're early in this podcast, in this live stream. We're early in the life of BitStarter. And we are still unbelievably, because it feels like a long time, still unbelievably early in the life of BitTensor. So early.
Subnet Alpha is less than a year old. right? It didn't come in till like mid-February last year. I remember all the debates around dynamic tau and whether it was going to be delayed. Now we've got like 128 tokens and an increasingly complex economy, which now has, as of like 2 months ago, crowdfunding, which gives pledges OTC level deals and the chance to back teams before launch. So we're not even at the first year mark of Subnet Alpha.
I know.
I would know myself because I went onto X when subnets went live, and I put up a post asking if there was any Telegram groups so I could speak to people about the alpha of different subnets, and there was nothing, which is why Subnet Summer created. It was to bring some people together, and from that day onwards, I realized there was a need for community, and then there was a need for a public square where everyone could speak. Validators, miners, subnet owners, and that's where we are today. And then I had an amazing chat with Macrozack. He enlightened me about BitStarter and the future of onboarding subnets and giving them the tools to succeed. And here we are today.
So, Alchemist, what were you doing before you became the kind of the mayor of the town square in Bittensor? What were you doing with your days?
Well, I work a full-time job. I was working a full-time job, working in crypto, funnily enough, in a brokerage. But I've just been keeping tabs on Bittensor since early days, since Dread Bongo, if you know who he is, made a post about it. I think it was in 2023, and since then I've been following the story, and I've been championing behind decentralized AI, or the world's greatest incentive mechanism, as I try to describe it to my family and friends. And I've had roles in community leadership while growing up, but it just made sense in terms to integrate this into my passion.
Yeah, well, you've done a decent job of it so far. And before we get on to any conversation around your new role with BitStarter, let's find out where BitStarter came from. And before BitStarter, Chris, what were you doing before BitStarter? How did you come into Bittensor? What were you doing when you got here?
What wasn't I doing? I've primarily, the red thread in my life has been writing, always been writing, because my passion is communicating, because so much depends on it. And in particular, communicating things that are complex or misunderstood. And so I have my own communications consultancy. I used to do journalism for The Guardian, for The Independent. I was a travel writer for a while. I worked in ad agencies, which you should never do. And eventually, I've known Will since I was 18, Will Squires, CEO of Macrozack, known Steph through him for almost as long. And he approached me in the autumn of 2023 and said something about robots training robots. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Long story short, Stefan was CTO of Bittensor, and Stefan created the subnet, which became Subnet 1. And as multiple subnets appeared, OTF realized, well, we can't run the protocol and own subnets because that's conflict of interest. So they asked Stefan, who created the subnet, could you spin this off into a separate company? He said, I can't do that without someone with serious business experience. That's got to be Will. Will and I had worked before together, been to university together as well. And then he asked me, please come and do the comms, come do the branding. We're going to launch this decentralized AI company. So that was right at the end of 2023. So that was just after the Revolution upgrade. We started Macrozack February, March 2024. And when I first looked at Bittensor, I found it fascinating intellectually, but the community, I was like, this is like a foreign language. I just do not understand what these space chimps are saying about anything. And then within about 4 or 5 months, I was fully in. It's such a powerful ecosystem, and it attracts people who love complexity. So you get a lot of very intense, interesting people trying to solve intense, interesting problems. And then all of a sudden you become one of them and you're trying to solve an interesting and intense problem.
I'm waiting for the day when I wake up as an intense and interesting person.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so what did you learn in that experience at Macrocosmos that kind of led to starting BitStarter? What was going wrong that you needed to fix? What was the opportunity that you saw?
After we were just saying about detail, right, in Subnet Alpha, once that properly came, once the consequences of that began to be known, there was this realization that in the past, tau emissions had enabled teams like Macrocosmos to really scale because tau was very strong and healthy and gave predictable returns. Detail did an amazing job of exposing teams to market mechanisms and forcing them to professionalize, but it also meant that suddenly emissions were very uncertain and they weren't tied to long-term research. They were tied to like short-term, like pump social media tactics. And I remember when I started going to conferences from Endgame onwards, new teams would approach me and go, how do you guys do it? Like, starting a subnet is impossible. You can't sell the alpha because you create more sell pressure. But then if you don't sell the alpha, you can't really fund what you're doing. And then you've got to do like this intense social media operation while also trying to do cutting edge, first of a kind technology. It just increasingly felt like almost that the drawbridge had gone up. And it wasn't quite like that, but even at Macrocosmos, we really felt like, oh my God, this is intensely hard. And I gradually came to realize that due to several factors, it was taking new teams far too long to get onto the protocol, too long to find the expertise that they needed. It was too hard for them to get assurance on their incentive or their validation. And ultimately, Bittensor was getting stuck. It was beginning to really ossify and stagnate. And I began to hear in the summer, increasingly, I just don't know if Bittensor is worth it anymore. And it was like really ringing alarm bells in my head. And I had all these ideas of how to solve it, but I realized the best teams to try new things are the new teams because they've got nothing to lose. So that's where the kind of initial problem and the spark came from. So since then, plenty more has happened, but I think I've stayed true to that central idea.
Yeah, the emissions problem that you articulated there, I think remained a problem and perhaps still is a problem. I remember when Siam and I were trying to do OTC deals through DSV, right back at the very, very start, April time. So the detail's still very, very new, and subnet owners were really reluctant to do an OTC deal because they were reluctant for alpha holders to see any alpha in the owner wallets shifting, because they felt like people were going to say, well, if you don't back yourself, then why would we back you? Whereas, of course, those emissions are there to fund the subnet. That is the way that it should work. There should be a way for teams to use those emissions to invest in their growth. That's the best thing for them, which in turn makes it the best thing for anyone that's holding their alpha. Still not an entirely solved problem, I think.
Not at all. And that's why we're trying to find ways of equipping teams with long-term liquidity, because ultimately there's a cash flow problem, right? There's just a really tight bottleneck. And for a lot of subnets, it's like walking a tightrope. So how are you meant to do like cutting edge research? How are you meant to build on a decentralized permissionless protocol when any Red Hat miner can knock your system down, right, at any moment, while having such thin margins and such, like, people can divest instantly and just, on low liquidity subnets, it can be very dramatic and very sudden. It's very hard to attract people to build, top state-of-the-art technology on something that feels so shaky. So BitStarter, from the very beginning, I wanted there to be a rate of divestment of alpha that was gradual, that would give alpha holders preferential rates in return for longer holding, because that's what businesses need, right? You need that from the beginning. If you sold shares at the start of your enterprise and people could just sell them tomorrow because the price went up and you were paid in the shares, but you couldn't sell the shares because that would make their price go down, just tie yourself up in knots. So we're constantly looking at ways of how can we bring alpha holders in? How can we empower them? How can we give them a stake in the business and its long-term success?
Yeah, and any business needs capital to start off with. They've got bills to pay. They need to bring talent in. They need to pay bills for things, and unless they have a massive pile of cash to get started with, that's got to come from somewhere. It's really unusual for businesses to start and have revenues flowing in from day one that cover all of their costs. So like VCs have been the answer for many tech businesses over the years, and the whole idea with Bittensor, part of that was that we can replace the VCs, but somebody needs to put that capital in, and it is the alpha holders. But and we know this because we're in Subnet Summer. Over the last few months, alpha holders, it's become a rotation game. I think, thinking back to perhaps February, March, when detail was all new, perhaps, do you think it might be true that at that time people were looking at teams and they were looking at visions and they were looking at ambitions over multi-year timeframes and saying, yeah, I'm going to back these guys to solve that issue. And then as they've watched other people make money on subnets over much shorter timeframes because they've pumped for whatever reason, they've gone, okay, I've still got conviction that that's going to work out over 3 years, but I want to make money over 3 months or 3 weeks or 3 days. So they start moving it faster. Alchemist, are you part of the problem here?
I'm not part of the problem, but early days, I do remember my group, especially when there was only so many subnets that we knew about. People were talking about holding, Chutes or Gradients or Templar or IOTA for, 3 years, and they're not going to touch it. And that was a big conversation at the time. And we're going to gain our APY and we're going to sit on our hands and it's going to be great. And I actually think that's still a great strategy. I just think that the group's active, everyone's live, and everyone wants to be involved every day, and everyone's antsy to jump onto the next thing. As a personal investor myself, I've found that actually having conviction in teams does serve long term, and not chasing the next green candle. Chasing the next green candle isn't the wisest of choices. It's actually doing the research, finding teams that you love, contributing yourself, being a voice for them, asking the right questions, and helping prod the team towards their own success. And I believe community, Subnet Summer plays a big role to that. And I think the Subnet teams are starting to listen. And turning that back to what I said at the start, I think that's also why it's great to have a long-term conviction for teams.
So how do we build it? How do we do it at BitStarter? I know, Mark, that you were keen to go into this yourself. You got to know us and our processes through Quasar. Quasar have been looking for a little while to find the right approach onto the protocol. And then once we started working together about, a month ago, maybe slightly longer, since then you've got to see how we go about trying to upskill teams, equip them, and essentially clear the path towards mainnet, anticipate challenges, work out the best approach for them, help them find the right partners, help them to avoid the mistakes that a lot of other teams have made when they try and build on Bittensor. So I'm curious from your perspective how it's been, how you've kind of perceived that, and where you're curious about how the process unfolds and where we can double down and improve it?
Sure. So, I mean, new teams coming on to BitTensor is always interesting. Over the last 6 months or so, I guess, you know, a whole load of people have reached out either to me or to Siam and said, you know, we've got this brilliant idea. Usually it's not such a brilliant idea. Usually what they're saying is, we've got zero experience in this. We do something completely wildly different, but would you like to give us some money? And the answer is very often no. In this instance, it was, the guys at Quasar that reached out to us a good couple of months ago. This is a while back, and said not only had they got an idea, but they had been talking to you through BitStarter, and they were looking for some investment to get a subnet slot so they could launch with your support. And that set them apart immediately, because they were talking to, you know, level-headed, sensible people with some BitTensor experience. So we jumped on a call with them. They are really bright guys, quite bright kids, if you will. They're much younger than I am these days. And they're smart. They are, you know, as you said, intense and interesting. And we took the decision, Simon and I, to back them and to invest in a subnet for them to operate. And then, that brought us much closer to you guys and the BitStarter process, so we can understand more about how that works and what's on offer for subnets. And that was a big part of us backing Quasar, because without BitStarter, I don't think that is half the package that it would otherwise be. We don't have, me and Siam, huge technical backgrounds. You know, we don't have that technical understanding, certainly not when it gets to real cutting edge AI, which is what Quasar is. So a criticism, if you will, that's been leveled at us over time is that sometimes we do that typical VC thing of backing founders. We back the team, back the idea, back the ambition, without really understanding the technicals to, you know, the nth degree. And I'll take that criticism, because I do firmly believe that when you're investing cash and capital and allocating capital, you are investing in people. It might not be the technical side that you're investing in. You're investing in the people, and that is what we do. But here with Quasar, we were able to back them because of the way that they'd already got a link with you guys, and you'd already done some technical due diligence, and you'd got a team there to work through it. And that added the missing piece for us. There we've got the capital that we can allocate. We've got the drive and the ambition and the energy and the enthusiasm and the expertise of the Quasar team. And then we've got the BitTensor expertise and experience that BitStarter bring into it. And really, it's a rather perfect triangle. And that has led to us being involved with those guys and with you. But I'm interested to know, how did they find you? How many subnet prospects did you have to talk to find a good one? How do they find you? Do you find them? What happens? What's the process?
When we started, when I began building BitStarter, it was all inbound. In fact, every team that's come to us has been inbound, and I was amazed at how many people were coming to us before we even had like the website, right? When it was just me pitching a deck to people based on an idea and a domain name that I was waiting to build on. We got 20 teams approaching us in the first 8 weeks. And I was blown away by the quality, because there were different levels of maturity. There were, students with brilliant ideas like Ayad and Youssef at Quasar. And then there were serial founders who'd had multiple exits, who were looking to build on BitTensor because they'd heard about it. They needed compute for the next business idea. But how long do you have as a serial founder to go on endless GitHubs, Telegrams, Discord servers, for eventually you just give up and raise the capital and buy the compute instead, right? So at first I was like, I'm just going to help everyone as much as I can. I'm just going to try and get my teeth into every white paper, every application. I'm just going to throw myself in and that way work out what these teams actually need, right? And then that way I could design the solution based on what people were telling me, based on the problems. What we quickly came to realize was there are a hell of a lot of problems, in the sense that you say, Mark, you know, well, we back the team sometimes, we don't always have like the deepest understanding of technical. And it's like, well, who would be able to have a thorough enough understanding of the protocol, tokenomics, commercial models, technical, machine learning, investor relations? You get to the point where it's just, it takes a village. It takes more than a single individual, single lone genius to do it, which is why I wanted to build an integrated service where we'd have every vertical either on my team with people like Alk, or through our advisory panel, so that we always have someone at hand to go, hey, can we look into like their idea for their alpha tokenomics? Can we look into how their incentive mechanism or their validation, their ground truth is working? And we do all of that before they go onto the protocol, because if you do it once you've got the subnet, everything slows down, because either you have to go back and undo your mistakes, or it's linear. If you do it all in an integrated way, you can really quickly upskill every area, as opposed to, oh, well, we've just got our subnet, now we're going to go and look for our full stack dev. And that might take 4 weeks, but we can't go on main until we get an engineer. So it was really about, if it's taking AI PhDs 9 months to get onto the protocol, Bittensor is just not going to achieve its potential. It just can't. It's way too long. In AI, it's a lifetime.
Yeah. So these advisors then, how did you pull them together? Who have you got on the team? This is the bit that really turned me on when I saw you announcing all of these guys. Not all of them, but most of them.
Let me start with the deck. I don't know if you can see my screen, Mark. I've just shared. Has that done? Oh, no, it has. Okay.
There we are.
Sick. Excellent. Allow me to get into slideshow mode. This deck is slightly old, but that's what decks do. They get out of date very quickly. Essentially, we want to help aspiring subnet teams upskill, scale, and win backing. We do that by helping them with access. We do that by helping them with assurance, so that they get the people who know to look over their white paper or their technical documentation, and we help them with their alpha. So problems at the beginning were, I'd see it at Macrocosmos all the time, people asking someone like Steph or Brian, could you read our white paper? Like, they might have to wait a month to get, you know, a few notes back. If you're looking for a big amount of investment in your first of a kind technology, like, that's never going to be the kind of assurance that investors need, especially when you're trying to sell them subnet alpha, a highly volatile, unproven asset. So together, these problems just made it impossible for new teams to move quickly and to find the backing they needed. Enter the advisors, because very quickly I realized, you know, it can't be me, because I do not have a tenth of the skill, the experience, the knowledge of the people around me. But I know that together we do, right? I know that actually we have everything we need on the protocol. We've learned a hell of a lot. We've discovered the types of incentives that work, that don't work. We've discovered how the types of problems that are best suited to the protocol. And yet all that information is just disparate, it's scattered, it's not easily available. Now, this is slightly old. We're actually up to 12 advisors now. But the idea being that at first I thought they should just represent different aspects of the protocol. Now it's more like they're clustered into technical, commercial, protocol and governance. And what we're trying to do now is to make more use of the advisors by making sure that when we incorporate new teams, when we bring them on board, we get them to really flag the areas that they think are weakest and that we think that they need help on. Together, we coalesce them into a few themes or a few specific questions, and then we target the advisors first who are most likely to have expertise on that. We gather their feedback we put it together into like a comprehensive summary, and then with that, we use that to do some troubleshooting on where does that lead to in terms of how we fix these issues. Who might the right people be within Bittensor, within our team, beyond, to help them address those difficulties. And from now on, we want to make it even more fundamental by saying that we'll only go public with the team when 2 advisors go public with them as well. As in, if we can't get 2 of the advisory panel to come out and say this team's great or they're really promising, then we probably shouldn't go live with them. So at the beginning, it was difficult to coordinate because, again, 20 teams, 12 advisors, very, very fast paced. People say business is like having a startup is like having a baby. BitStarter is like a maternity unit. It's just, they all need a lot of attention. And when you multiply that by they all want the attention of 12 advisors, it can get very difficult to juggle. Now that we have people like Alk, a wider team, we've just obviously done our second team with Quasar, more streamlined, more experienced, and ultimately we're just getting much more in sync with each other. So if I go to the web app, share this instead, you can see our current teams and you can see panel. And there you go, you can see Cameron, Voon, and Keith as well. And with a lot of these advisors, they earned it because they took an interest and they wanted to help and they offered to. And it sounds like the kind of thing everyone would like to do, judge a new team, tell them what you think they should do. But actually, a lot of the time, it's going through quite deep technical documentation and putting your neck on the line and saying where you think they need to improve or where they need to stop and reconsider. So we're really grateful to them. And again, we're working on ways to make them more fundamental to the process. We also have this wonderful team who have followed me into the down the rabbit hole of BitStarter. And you can see Alchemist there as well. The idea being that, again, it takes a village. And if we want new teams to succeed, they need tokenomics. They need incentive mechanism. They need publicity. They need investor relations. And if we can upskill all of those things at once, they're way more likely to be an appealing prospect to investors within the protocol, like DSV, but also beyond it. So it's only been 3 months. We are way stronger than we were when we were about to launch our first team. And we're going to keep getting stronger because we are upskilling each other to upskill the teams more effectively. So I'll pause there because that was a lot of words. Let's have a look. Okay.
So you've got this advisor panel. I'm going to turn that off, I think, for a second. And the advisor panel has got all of the knowledge really within it, and your job is to get the right knowledge out of the right people. So you put them into groups, and then when you have a team or a prospective team, you'll give it a bit of a first glance and go, okay, these could be some areas, and then you'll work out what the specific questions are in those areas and share those only with the relevant people on the advisory panel because they might have some input. And then I guess it's always easy to be critical and say, no, that's rubbish. What's harder is to come up with something better. Exactly.
So we only do that because we're trying to prioritize. You know, we're trying to move at speed. We have several different teams. Advisors are busy. We want to try and go, right, where are the real areas where we think there has to be some assurance? Work together with the team to come up with a tight problem statement or make sure that we're aligned, and then go to those advisors first and then widen the circle from there. We're learning how the different advisors like to work in terms of, do they prefer calls? Do they prefer documents to fill? Do they prefer to meet the team in person? I'm glad to say that most of the advisors, They want to roll up their sleeves. They actually want to get stuck in. They don't just want to be dismissive and take a 5-minute glance and then say thumbs up, thumbs down. So we are ramping up towards full power. We're surveying the advisors to find out what they think makes a good subnet, and then we can publish those survey results in aggregate anonymously. We're looking to do a roundtable with them once every 3 months, where we can essentially do all the advisors come together and we talk through the process of upskilling new teams. And if all of this sounds like overkill, I think to myself, what would have happened if Tennex tried to get through this process, right? I saw people on different channels literally the night before, when their price was pumping on SN67, saying, this is such a scam. On Tautective, on groups of quite senior people in Bittensor, next day, drained. So advisory and assurance, it sounds like a tick box exercise until you realize what happens without it. And actually, it doesn't take a rug pull to make you realize that, do you want new teams to be wasting 3 months on testnet or on just burning emissions on main because they get there and they realize, oh wait, our validation's totally gameable, when someone like Stefan or someone like Giles could have told them that in like an hour 3 months before? That's wasting emissions, it's wasting alpha holders money, and ultimately just it bogs down Bittensor. It stops us from having 128 absolutely surefire hits who know what they're doing and know how to produce it. I think that if we come together, we can make sure that every team has the best chance of that. It's complex, right? But that's what we're here for. We love complexity. Otherwise, we would have thrown in the towel ages ago.
And that's exactly why I had to join BitStarter. I think having the access to the tools, the advisors, the team around you, having people look at a subnet and wanting to contribute is Bittensor becoming one again. And I think when Detail began, we split off into 64 or 128 segments, and everyone was working in their own silos. And that was great for expansion, but I do think there was a missing piece, which was the glue and the access to information that was being wisely used amongst all the subnets. And yeah, unfortunately, what happened to 67 could have been avoided if there was more involvement from advisors, from the team, from DSV. But yeah, I think going forwards, BitStarter does play an important role.
Excuse the camera off situation. I'm finding a plug socket that actually works, which is surprisingly quick in here. I love it when tech things like this happen, though, because it's a reminder that despite working on the world's foremost decentralized AI protocol, you are not immune from the absolute basics of, yes, but do you have power? Yes, but does the Wi-Fi work? So I have now located a power source.
We should get an advisor to find the power source for you.
Technical due diligence on the live streams.
That is what we need. On the due diligence side of things, so where do most of the new teams coming in, the prospective teams, where do they need the most support? And I know some of the answer to this, and you just alluded to it there, and it's something that we're working through with Quasar, which is the incentive mechanism itself. So I know that you've got Giles on that advisory team, and he has a huge amount of experience on that front. And in fact, I think you announced that partnership just before we went live.
Yeah. So incentive is so important to Bittensor. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's where the spark happens, and it's a living thing in that it's not a one and done. You have to keep evolving with the miners. That's what makes Bittensor so powerful. Now, a lot of new teams will have this, they have come up with a great incentive mechanism, but that's in like 3D. It needs to be in 4D. It needs to account for time, right? And it's only when you've really built on the protocol that you get that and you understand it more fundamentally, which is yeah, but how are people going to react to this? How will miners react to it? Have you considered, how all the ways in which this might be gamed? And unless you've built on it before or you've mined on it before, it's very rare that you've really thought that through. It does happen. We do get teams that are like very strong on the IM, but less so on, say, the commercial aspect. Now, the idea with the advisors is that they just give free discretionary advice, but it's also an opportunity to connect teams to other services. Now, if a team, our terms of service are very freeing. I wanted BitStarter to be an agent liberation, not another tool for bondage. So no team is ever forced to use anything. They don't have to use any of the services that we provide, and they can go with any other investor they want. It's not like, oh, you sign with us, you can't talk to this group or that group. So no team is ever forced to use anyone, but the benefit of meeting the best and most experienced people in the protocol is they're the ones who know how to help, and they're the ones who have the contacts and the experience to know exactly how to pinpoint that help. So we announced it tonight, which is Tensora helping, working with Quasar as consultants on their incentive mechanism. And that matters because Tensora have mined basically every subnet going and know the protocol really thoroughly, which means that they're very good at just spotting what might go wrong or what hasn't been thought through enough. And when you're, two 18-year-olds who have a brilliant idea, but you haven't been tested on with the miners, that's exactly what you need, right? That's exactly the kind of support that is really powerful. So Tensora will be working from henceforth to upskill, assure, stress test, and improve Quasar's incentive. And that means a hell of a lot, but effectively it gives them the best chance of thriving on main. They've already met Ayad and Youssef. Ayad and Youssef were really open to being supported, which is critical. You can't help a team that's like, no, this is gospel, we're not changing it. A lot of teams will be very, very touchy about having their technical stuff even questioned, right? So it's really great that Quasar, Ayad and Youssef were so open. Now, with Tensora's quarterbacking, it's like how many potential errors, missteps, delays have just been eliminated, right? How much protocol experience have they just added? Is it a 10x or a 20x? Like, it's a real injection. And if you're a new team that doesn't have the contacts in the protocol, doesn't know how to ask these questions, you're way less likely to get that assistance.
Yeah, I mean, as an investor and speaking for Siam as well, we were delighted that Tensora, after the technical due diligence, kind of not only wanted to give that feedback and guidance, but also step in and partner, because I think it is going to help Quasar hugely. Otherwise, with the way that they were coming in, with their very limited BitTensor experience, I think there's a very good chance that they were going to get gamed a huge amount as soon as they went live. And now that's not going to be the case. So they are going to get traction and get results a lot faster. Well,
I'd like to point out another piece of news that will help them get results and traction a lot faster. And that is a tweak to to Quasar's crowdfund itself. So I'm going to share their page right now, Mark. If you just
I'm clicking.
Re-enable, wonderful. So, and this is worth explaining because I think that on the live stream, I didn't spend long enough actually talking about what is actually both a really cool piece of tech functionality and a dream come true, quite literally for me, because this is what I feverishly imagined would be the case back when BitStarter was a twinkle in my eye in September, which is you get a choice of how long you want to invest for with differing rates of discount depending on people's risk appetites. So this I thought would be quite trivial. Turned out it was a little bit more complex than was imagined, which is why we only got it ready just before Quasar's crowdfund. But effectively, it means that you can get a 25% discount on the Subnet 24 alpha price, and then receive the alpha that you get for your TAO over a 3-month distribution, or in the second track, you get a 40% discount for a longer period. Now, as you can see, it's not quite neck and neck, but it's not far off. Now, the big risk of this is, not of the two streams, but the big risk in general is there's an open market, and with some subnets like 24, which had a hell of a lot of liquidity, if word spreads somehow, as it did with Alpha Core in our first raise when they left the subnet number on the website, what can happen is people accumulate, we announce, price goes up, people dump, and then suddenly your pledge isn't as good as the market rate, right? It's more expensive. Now, there's still benefits to it because you're getting, firstly, we have 2 tracks here. So our long-term one was still much better than the market rate. But we're working on different solutions, how to protect pledges and make sure that they always get the best rate. But thanks to us coming together, we've managed to change the crowdfund terms. And this is for everyone who's pledged. It's not like, oh, from now on, there's an extra discount. It's anyone who's pledged at all now gets a more advantageous rate. I'm going to zoom in. So when we launched these, the crowdfund terms set the price of alpha, 1 alpha on Subnet 24 at 0.0046 TAO per alpha. That made the 25% discount, 25% discount 0.00345, and the 40 0.00276. Now, all pledges, including those who pledged so far, receive alpha at the new reduced rate below, which is 0.0039, which is a hefty discount on what it was, which was already discounted. And when you take that down to 25%, that's 0.0029, and at 40%, 0.0023, which is basically as low as a price can go before it gets deregged. And therefore, that is as close to maximum advantage as you can hope for. And that's in return for a longer term holding. We recognize that, you know, people are really backing a team for a significant amount of time at 6 months. In most investments, that's normal. That's actually quite very little amount of time. As Alchemist was saying earlier, actually, when people are hopping from one 3x to another, it can feel like a really long time. Now, obviously, you get your alpha back on a regular basis all the way through, but that means that you're not locked in, which is great because you are getting the flow back. You're not having to wait the entire time to receive a big windfall, which would, again, cause a pump and dump. But it does make you more committed to the team. And we want to find ways to bring alpha holders closer and turn them into advocates for the subnet and empower them to contribute to the subnet more and its long-term success, like DSV do, like BitStarter do, like Tensora do. Ultimately, we can all become advocates of these teams. And as I found out when I was building BitStarter and I just asked people for help, there's a hell of a lot of talented people around here, Alchemist included. So I will zoom out of this little corner, but basically the raise just got a lot more advantageous. The 25% discount is now well below the market rate. Only slight issue is the Connect wallet functionality is sometimes iffy, especially when we take a lot of traffic to the website. So we're working on it, but in the rest of this raise, the terms are the best we've ever offered.
I completely agree. And I think I also wanted to touch on the fact that you get a strong APY during this period. And if you're jumping around from subnet to subnet, you're not getting really access to that APY. And on top of that, we have a stake. We have a stake in Quasar. We want them to succeed. So over this 3-6 period, hopefully forever period, BitStarter and DSV, we want to give them the success that they need and that they deserve. So there is really a long-term commitment from them, but from us as well. And I thought to also highlight that since we've started talking about the pledge of Quasar, quite a lot of people have jumped online. So there is still a lot of interest in the discounts and understanding them.
Yeah, the interesting thing for me here is that this is only the second BitStarter launch, and I'm going to turn that share off again, and it's not perfect, is it? The first one wasn't perfect, and the second one hasn't been perfect. You know, it's easy in hindsight to say, should we have done the 7-day launch over Christmas? It's easy in hindsight to say, was the discount set at the right level? And like I said earlier, it's really easy to be critical. It's much harder to come up with solutions. And I think we all want to attract talent to Bittensor. Like, that's the reason why everyone's giving their time so freely to BitStarter, is because they all have a huge vested interest in the success of this ecosystem. They want talent to come in. They want teams to succeed. And that's really what's happening here. And what started out as a week-long launch at one rate has now extended to a 2-week launch at a much better rate. And is it perfect? No. Is it probably going to be perfect on the next launch? Maybe not. After 10 launches, I reckon BitStarter's going to have this down absolutely pat. Until then, we're in kind of effectively price discovery mode, and we're working out how to do it and how to find
exactly. But I'm really glad you say that. I'm really glad you say that, because it is an experiment. It hasn't been done before. Subnet Alpha didn't exist until like 10 months ago, right? When I first came up with the idea, people could see it, but the fact that no one had attempted it before quite like that shows that it was always a bit of a leap. It's very obvious in retrospect to go, oh, wait, like, if the price falls below, what's our contingency plan? Are we just going to go on the open market and buy up the... You realize actually there's a lot of factors at play, but that's one of the reasons why we have experimented with 2 tracks, for example. It's one of the reasons why we get a lot of advisors in to give a mixture of experts and different opinions. And one thing I can commit to and guarantee 100% is that we will continue working night and day, like, for the rest of the year and until either I collapse from exhaustion or Bittensor is to the moon, to find not just the right formula, but the right formula for the teams and for the protocol. We will continue to experiment. We'll bring in more and more BitStarter fans. We'll conduct surveys. We'll do open sessions where we get people's ideas and opinions about what to prioritize, because there's always a trade-off. There's always a trade-off, right? So what's more important, creating a forum for people to pitch and discuss subnet ideas, or pledging through a mobile functionality? Because both are going to take a lot of time and cost quite a bit of money, but the web app developers and both can go wrong or expose you to different issues that you didn't know about, right? So there are trade-offs, but we're managing them by being in constant communication with everyone around us. And by when things do go wrong, we try and explain why. Hey, we wanted to do the raise over Christmas. We wanted to make sure that Quasar had the right amount of time. We didn't want to make it too long because we didn't want to stop the next team we don't want to do more than one team at a time. But actually, it's not really fair for Quasar to lose half of their time on Christmas Day and Boxing Day and New Year's Eve, right? It means that they don't get a fair shot. So actually, it's right to take that on board and to accept.
Yeah, I mean, we come at that from different angles, because Quasar aren't going to lose out here, because Simon and I are backing them. We will just cover their runway. Like, they are entirely sustainable. We're going to back them all the way because I have every faith in them as a team, especially with that BitStarter advisory board, and especially with that new partnership with Tensora to sort out their IM.
And just to add to that, Mark,
Quasar aren't going to miss out. The people that are going to miss out are the investors. So there's not very many people in this ecosystem that can actually do OTC deals. And I'm very lucky that I am one of them. You know, I'm in regular communication with subnet owners, and I regularly, whether it's through DSV or through Astrid or personally, get the opportunity to do OTC deals, but most don't. And that's what is important here, is that, and you've said this a few times, it takes a village. And I think that for BitTensor to bring the right teams in, it does take a village. It can't just be some people writing some checks to bring some people in. It needs to be, okay, we'll bring them in, we'll vet them. Who else wants to join the party? And that's really what this OTC offering is about, rather than just having two stakeholders to kind of own this subnet and manage that part of it. Open the floodgates and say, well, who else wants to come in at this ridiculous discount level and take some upside here? Who can remember feeling back in March, yeah, this is a good team, a good project, they're well resourced, they're well funded, they've got ambitions that they're going to realize, and we're going to sit with them for 3 months or 6 months, rather than rotating at the top of every hour into the subnet that is number one on Tower Stats.
That's it. You've absolutely brilliant description, and Alk, I'm sure, will second this when we say, do you know how frustrating it is when you suddenly see a team introduced through the cold key swap, and then the investors introducing them, and you know you've missed out on the alpha before the alpha, or you see that massive 10x pump? I got the impression, Alchemist, that on Subnet Summer, at least back when I started going on it, people are looking for that, right? They're looking for the alpha before the alpha. They're looking to find the teams before they massively pump, because they want to be part of the ride. They want to be early. They want to find the best early teams and back them. Now, BitStarter, I thought, well, why should investors be the only ones who get to do OTC deals? And then wait a minute, some of them are taking 20-30% of future allocation forever with no exit clause. It's like, I'm sure that if we bring people together, A, pledgers get the same rates that investors do, and B, guess what? If you widen the backing of a team, you've just built their first community. You've just helped them find their people who actually care and want to back it, right? If you give them a chance to get onto a platform and share their vision, and we help them do that, they can find the people who are like, hell yeah, I want to be in for 6 months. I want to be in for 12 months because I want this to happen on BitTensor, right? And it's our job to make the teams as strong as possible and make them pitch as strong as possible too.
Let's compare and contrast Tennex with anything that comes through BitStarter, because you guys were both quite active yesterday on that Subnet 67 debacle. What lessons can be learned? I've seen a whole load of it on Telegram, people with different opinions on Telegram and on X. What have you guys taken away from it so far? And from an investor perspective, what lessons can be learned?
I want to give Alchemist first dibs at this, because he was the one who stepped in yesterday and actually set up a Telegram group for people who'd lost Tau. And like, it's exactly that kind of attitude, that proactive, actually give a shit about community and helping people, that made Alchemist just the right person for BitStarter. But Alk, tell them what happened.
Yeah, first of all, when I saw what happened, I thought, wow, this is crazy. There's a rug pull that occurred on Bittensor. And then I started seeing people post on X saying that they were really distressed. And this has actually affected a lot of people's lives. And that was really upsetting, especially because Bittensor is such a community first, people first space. And I value that, obviously, being part of Subnet Summer. And I believe that we can do anything as an ecosystem, and that's why I created a group. I believe we can band together, we can try find solutions, we can, even if we can't figure everything out, at least we show support. I found it very upsetting, and I think from my end, and I think from a lot of people's ends, we should be listening to the people that are showing concerns, the people that are raising concerns about subnets, and we shouldn't be pushing them away just because we want our bags to continue to grow. I think it's actually about tuning in and questioning everything.
I agree here, because I have to say there is an attitude around, well, it's all permissionless and DYOR, and if you're stupid enough to fall for this stuff, then you deserve to have your bags drained. And this isn't a caricature. This is actually, I've heard subnet owners say this, right? Not naming names, but it's like there is an attitude of, well, there is no FCA, or there's no banking regulation to step in and protect you and make sure that all your stupid mistakes are covered for. And I get that. I don't want there to be some kind of central authority, but I do think that if we're this susceptible to a common rug pull, right, that just depends on the subnet owner having a level of decency above that of a criminal, then again, the protocol is just massively discredited. Now, we can never be 100% defended against acts like these. As I understand it, this was a malicious, deliberate extraction, but we can educate people, we can help them assess subnets, we can help them shed light on ridiculous claims of 85% returns, no downside. We can equip them with the tools they need to make wise decisions. Any corporation that deliberately makes money from the lack of expertise and knowledge of its investors is wrong and is engaged in wrongdoing. And to say that that's part of the ride, to me, is like, nah, that's a cop-out. We're better than that. And there can be more due diligence, assurance, assistance, and exposure. We don't have to take this. So I've spoken to a few people who are interested. I know that John of BitSec, SN60, did some great work yesterday trying to investigate exactly what happened, and that people are bringing together the information, not just saying, too bad, you lost at the casino, better luck next time.
On that front, do you think that the anonymous subnet owner is an unhelpful situation here? So from my perspective, through DSV and personally, I make investments into subnets where I either know or know of the subnet owner or the team. And sometimes the more I know them, the better I know them, the stronger my conviction in what they're doing. And perhaps that's understanding, but perhaps it's trust. And we haven't, we're not able, DSV is a regulated entity. We're not able to do OTC deals into subnets where the founding team isn't doxed and there's no paperwork. We need that audit trail. We need to be able to prove that we've invested our investors' capital and deployed that sensibly and in a defensible way, where I can stand up at the end of the quarter and I don't have to say, hey, we lost all your money because we stuck it all on this because it was going up. And actually I can't do that. So we have to have the paperwork in order. And these teams that are coming through BitStarter, you know who they are.
We have to, like you said, right? But also at Macrocosmos, I remember we were the first team to put all our photos on our website, which sounds crazy, but very few other teams even had websites pre-detail. And those that did certainly didn't put their faces on it. And those that did put their faces on it were avatars of one kind or another. Again, I get it. I get the crypto ethos. I get the power of anonymity. At the same time, if you're going to be soliciting investment from the public, right, no way would I have a team on that wasn't willing to put their camera on a live stream, not willing to put their name, their real name, onto their project. It's just not right. I'm not sure about forcing people, because sometimes every now and then someone does have a really good reason for not wanting to have their public profile, but then maybe you shouldn't run a subnet. And maybe if you do, you should take the consequences of that, which is, well, in the same way that if you haven't shipped a line of code, people aren't going to pledge to you or invest in you or stake to you. If you haven't shipped your photo or told us who you are, then you're going to take a concomitant hit in how much you get staked to you.
I am going to touch on this from an investor side. I think you have your own prerogative to stay hidden behind the curtain if you wish, but I'm pretty confident that even conversations in Subnet Summer going forwards, people will be looking for a team. I think naturally the language has changed and people will want more trust than they even did before after what's happened. So I guess it's up to the Subnet team themselves to make that choice, because I guess this is a Darwinistic change where people will be trusting teams.
I want to zoom out for a second and look at what BitTensor looks like to either external investors or institutional capital. And you get this thriving economy operating in a parallel universe with its own jargon. You're really interested in it, and then you see something like Tennex happen, and you're like, nah, this can't be serious. Like, this is not ready for, $1 billion plus investment. And one of the things that I've had investors say to me, and a few approached after BitStarter, and when we spoke to them, a couple of them, these quite big investment groups, were saying things like, well, we've been interested in BitTensor for a long time, but it just doesn't seem to have any governance or like any kind of assurance or, officially available or trustworthy information. We just can't invest in it in this stage, because what happens if the protocol just changes how missions are governed tomorrow to something ridiculous? There's no recourse, and it's that combination of, like, as OTF shrinks, who can you trust? Who can you go to for advice, for just knowledge about the protocol, knowledge about what works? I want to create a library of case studies, of incentive mechanisms. I want to create assurance protocols and processes that are like the advisory panel, that we get them to certify, so that eventually when new teams approach us, we can give them like knowledge that's been enriched by the best in the protocol over a long period of time, that's been assured and certified by them. That's really valuable. Sounds boring, it's not a 10x gain, but actually that is offering real value. And already we're beginning to see that investors want it, and new teams actually want it too. And it might be the thing that turns a hesitant investor into a confident one. Ultimately, we need more investors in Tau, we need more in subnets, and we need to be more proactive in understanding how to make that happen.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. So certainly there has been no book of best practice for what it takes to launch a subnet, and I think that having some resources pulled together into one place would be hugely helpful. So we've had some questions come in. This is the only one I think that I'm going to show, and it says, do you earn yield on the distributed alpha as it unlocks? Which I think I want to just open that up a little bit, Chris, because I'm perhaps not as clear on this as I could be. So can you explain again how, if I stake 5 Tau now into the 3-month pledge, what happens? How do I get my alpha? When do I get my alpha? Talk me through it from a logistical perspective.
Yeah, great question. And thanks for making sure it got read out. The alpha is distributed right now every fortnight, every 2 weeks. We can set the date. With Alpha Core, we set it on a Sunday. We'll make that public as soon as the raise, the crowdfund is finished. And then every 2 weeks, the alpha is distributed in proportion to the Tau that you pledged, and the APY from the owner key validator is also taken into consideration and included in your payout every 2 weeks, every time that you get your alpha from the TAO pledge. You also get the APY as well. So it is distributed as it unlocks, and it's the owner key validator APY.
Okay, so I'll put my 5 TAO in, and then every fortnight I'm going to get my alpha back out.
5, Mark, up the ante, man.
Fine, 7. That's as high as I'm prepared to go.
He's such a good negotiator, guys. He's so really just you want him on your side. Exactly. You get the alpha basically straight into your wallet, like as if you had staked it, which is actually really nice, because I pledged quite a lot to Alpha Core, and now every now and then, like, oh, what's happened to my? Oh, right, it was Sunday yesterday. There is a big stake on SN66, which is actually a really nice a nice way to receive it. At the same time, it also means that with BitStarter, we get paid like that, as in we take 3% of emissions over the first 3 months, and when we get that in a gradual stream, like pledges do, so which means we're incentivized to keep helping Quasar, right? Not just for those 3 months, but ideally, I'd want to hold them for as long as possible and push them into the top 20, right? Because that's the most advantageous thing to do. It's just when you're aligned in this way, you're incentivized in the same direction. So you want to build those long-term relationships.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things actually that we haven't touched on, which is that BitStarter and anybody that kind of works with a subnet through BitStarter gets paid in subnet alpha. So it pulls everyone into alignment for the long term, which I think is a really, really interesting.
Oh man, this idea, when this gradually came to me, it was almost like I was like going half mad with this like crazy vision of fully aligned incentives being the future of the economy. I wanted to, basically, subnet teams were asking me for services that I couldn't provide, that I knew my team couldn't provide, but that were just really important. So one of them was hiring. Like when a team approaches you after a couple of meetings, you ask them, what's your first hire going to be? And they say, well, we really need a full stack dev, but can you recommend someone? Now, you can't just do everything. We're actually working to create a kind of talent pool, but we wanted to bring in partners who were the best around, who I've used personally, and who were willing to be paid only in future alpha allocation. Because as you said, Mark, that means, firstly, they don't get paid if there's no launch. That's an important factor. It's future allocation, which means that they want to help the team go. They have the same need as we do. Second aspect is, if I'm the recruiter and I find you a full stack, I'm charged with finding you a full stack dev for 5,000, 10,000 alpha, whatever it is. I want to find you the most cracked dev, the ex-OpenAI senior machine learning, all bells and whistles guy, and convince him to join Bittensor and your team, because then when he starts actually working for the new team, they've got the best chance of absolutely flying out the blocks, which means their alpha is more likely to go up, which means my 10K alpha is going to be worth 10 times as much because they've got the amazing senior machine learning scientists. So if we can align it in this way, it can't fail, right? You're giving them the absolute best in the business. So, and that's, yeah, tell me.
I was going to say, and this is why everyone could be really short-sighted about pledging, because we are so incentively aligned for the teams to be successful, that looking at today and tomorrow's price doesn't really matter. Looking at where well, in this case, DSV and BitStarter want to push Quasar, pledging at a 40% discount and nearly at the bottom of barrel prices, like that's a phenomenal opportunity, because we're all at stake here as well to make them succeed.
And
to give them all the tools.
Succeed is the word, man, because I don't want I don't want to pump and dump. It just wouldn't interest me. It doesn't motivate me. I actually want to build it better. Every time a team comes to me, you asked me at the start, Mark, like, how long did it take you to find a good team? Every time a team comes to me, I'm like, how could we build this better? What's the best version of this, right? Okay, they don't have a very strong team. Who could we find who'd really love to like work as a founding engineer on this project, right? Or which other subnet could partner with them because they actually have a symbiotic relationship? Build it better, right? It's not pump and dump it better or bitch it better, right? Build it better. Roll up your sleeves. One thing that really pissed me off over the summer, was the amount of people that hold Tau like a lottery ticket. Like, this hasn't gone up enough. Like, this was $240 a year ago. I want a refund. It's like, guys, there wouldn't be a BitTensor if Jacob hadn't actually built something to enable other people to build on, right? Everyone's got a skill to share. And I want to use this moment to just give a shout out to some of the people in the comments, because I mean, Gus is a machine also working with BitStarter. He is more into the protocol than I was when I was working at Macrozack, and he'd never worked for a team on it before. People like Tau Stacker, who's also posted Happy New Year. You're cool cats. Thank you very much. People like Tau Stacker who are constantly posting, analyzing, sharing their opinion and ideas. We see it as like, you know, that's just people doing what they want to do. But at the same time, it's like, that's how I got into BitTensor, was just reading other people's insights that they take the time and effort to share. We have Troy, who's obviously Quasar, who approached me like 5 months ago and who kept at it, kept going to get to this point, right? And then people like Angry Dave, who has been posting more than I have. And again, I work in this ecosystem in like multiple roles. Finally, shout out to Tau City Crypto Buffalo, who has just started an even better live stream than ours, who has a wonderful interview style and some really, really cool ideas and special effects that I think can, again, build it better, make live streaming and radio shows on BitTensor different. And again, when we can't all be machine learning experts, but we do all have something to offer, right? We do all have something to bring. And when we align in the right way, incentives are all you need. Align incentives, the rest just clicks.
It's funny, isn't it? The longer you spend in BitTensor, the more important incentives becomes to your like day-to-day.
I'm so boring to my family. I'm so much more boring to my. We need like a friends and relatives support group. BitTensor, and he was never the same again.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what else we've got to cover here, but I'm just going to say that those criticisms that we've had maybe at DSV, where we just back the people because we don't have that technical understanding. I'm going to defend those. When you're allocating capital, you're interested in who you're entrusting that capital to, and the beauty of investing into a BitStarter backed team is that the expertise that's included in that team that you can kind of bolt on to the subnet team itself is huge and is invaluable. And I think it's going to be a predictor of outcomes and success way more than the current price. So when I'm interested in backing a team now, having that knowledge that all of those advisors within BitStarter are, perhaps have had a look at. And I think you've got some interesting ideas coming. I think the idea of having two of those advisors putting their neck on the line and saying, "Yep, we're backing these." I like that. I like the way that Tensora have said, "Yeah, okay, we're interested enough in this project to pull resource off other things and dedicate it to Quasar, because it's that sort of experienced team that people would love to back. But instead of backing the experienced team of a really well-established subnet that's flying high, you're backing that experienced team at a really, really lower rate. And I can't believe that they're not going to make up the difference.
Exactly. And honestly, we are just getting started. If you think that we've forgotten about like Alpha Core and like that's it, nuh-uh. Like we're going to keep supporting Dust in SN66, just like we're going to keep supporting Quasar. And I'm going to prove that BitStarter backed is the best way to get onto the protocol, get up to the top and stay there. We're going to keep doing that, and we're going to get better and better at it. Eventually, the level of knowledge, experience, and ability that we have will just be, why would you not use this service? And then we use the service ourselves to help pledges, to give everyone the best chance of backing teams and getting the best rate for them, the kind of rates that normally only DSV would get, or Yuma, or any other top investor, right? And then we create a movement for building better within the whole protocol. And that's why we hire people. That's why we work until it's 9:30 at night now, and I haven't finished before midnight over the Christmas holidays, because we want to do this, and we're 100% all in. And with people like Alchemist, working with DSV, people like Mark, actually willing to help us and to go shoulder to shoulder in trying to launch these teams. Tensora, the advisory panel, all of our partners and backers, eventually it just becomes an unstoppable force propelling movements, propelling subnets to the top. And we're going to prove it. So Quasar got like 3 days of the raise left. They're going to launch, and they're going to be given everything in our power to fly out of the blocks. So thank you, Mark, for devoting the time. Thank you, Alchemist, for believing in this since the minute I first pitched you, and just seeing the vision coming from Australia and making this a reality, and for just for giving a shit. Like in a world of like 10x quick pumps and gains, like actually caring and trying to make someone's vision a reality stands out. That's what I want this to be. That's what it's becoming. So thank you. And here's to 2026. I think it's going to be a year of new beginnings.
Indeed it is. Fantastic. Thanks, gents. I'm going to turn this off.
Thanks,
it's been a pleasure. Hopefully we'll get to do this again some other time. I've really enjoyed it.
100%. Thank you, Mark. Thanks, Al.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Take care.